welcome to Scream Queen, a podcast about scary movies.
From people not typically depicted in scary movies. And this week we have a special guest, writer, podcaster, educator, horror doula, as I realized from the Lovecraft Country, a podcast out of HBO, Ashley C. Ford. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. And congratulations on last week you shared the cover of your memoir, Somebody's Daughter, which you can pre-order ahead of its June 1st, 2021 launch. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. What an intro. Oh my gosh. I'm going to receive that.
We really just want to roll out the red carpet here on Screen Queen.
First of all, I'm going to receive that. Second of all, I'm really happy to be here. I don't think anybody who is familiar with my work or has been for a while really understands how much I love horror. And that getting to work on Lovecraft Country and being able to be part of these conversations now is the continuation of a dream come true. Like a dream come true. This is my sweet spot.
I mean, I didn't know, and I know you. I didn't know that you were into horror like that. So wait, can you give us like your horror origin story, as they might say?
You know, I usually tell people that the way I got into horror was essentially the fact that I'm the product of child neglect. And so there was not a lot of censorship of horror in my home unless it had to do with witchcraft. So whenever I had to watch, because my mom didn't want me to bring the devil into her house, so watching The Craft or something like that, when they would start to chant, I would have to turn the volume all the way down so that my mom wouldn't hear it and come in and go, "What the hell is that?" But even before that, when I was in kindergarten, I lived in Missouri with my grandmother, and she and I went to the movies every Saturday, single Saturday that we were there.
That's special.
And she was adamant that we would switch off picking the movies. So as a 5-year-old, she allowed me essentially to look at the posters and decide what movie I wanted to see.
A lot of power.
Whatever I picked, we could see. And I didn't really know the difference between what a rated G movie was versus a rated R movie. I just knew if I liked the poster or not. And if it
got cool colors.
If it had cool colors. If it was a cartoon, we were going to that one. Like, that's how we ended up seeing Aladdin. That's how we saw Beauty and the Beast. Like,
that's how we saw Cool World. Just kidding.
But honestly, no lie, that's how we saw Cool World. I don't think it was in the theater, but certainly I was like, it's a cartoon. And the grown-ups around me were like, oh yeah, it's a cartoon. I don't know what she's doing. But I watched the movie Fire in the Sky with my grandma.
Wow, that's a good one.
And it flipped me out for, honestly, the rest of my life. Rest of my life. Still scared of aliens quite a bit. Or abduction, essentially. Pretty scared of abduction, which, being from the Midwest, I think is fair. And I was terrified, but I also had this strange attraction to it, to darkness, to scary things, to creepy things. I had loved from an early age The Nightmare Before Christmas. I thought that was the coolest movie in the world.
That was the first VHS I had.
Yeah, I think that may have been true for us too. No, I think our first one was Home Alone, but it was up there. It was really close to being the first one. And I love that stuff. And despite or even maybe in some cases because of my family's aversion to anything like that, where it was like, that's of the devil, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, yeah. Let me look closer.
My mom just like last week, she bought me and my grown-ass brother matching shot glass sets of Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes!
She knows that so well.
She gets it. A friend of mine, we were on Zoom the other day, and he was like, Ashley, watch this or whatever. And I was like, what? And he tells his son to come over and like get into the Zoom. And I go, hey, buddy. And his son goes, nice work, Bone Daddy, which is from like The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I was like, oh my God. Like when my friends' kids fall in love with like The Nightmare Before Christmas, and when they fall in love with The Corpse Bride and Paranorman, and anything that has to deal with like those, especially child-friendly little like creepy stories and things like that, it just, my heart explodes because I was that kid. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I remember showing some kids Coraline when I was a nanny, and I got permission from all their parents to show it to them, but only one of them liked it. Like it was like this group of like all these little kids. I think there were like 6 kids, right? And only one of them was like a little black girl. And she was like, yes. Like all the rest of the kids were like, I don't know, this is scary. And she was like, no, I want to be there.
And that's all that matters. You made that connection.
And I was like, yes.
You better indoctrinate the next generation.
That's my goal.
I think like it being a product of childhood neglect is so real though. I mean, like, when people talk about latchkey kids, and I never understood what that meant, because I just thought that was normal. Like, isn't it just that nobody's there, and I just go over to my Auntie Denise's place and they put in Serpent in the Rainbow, and I'm like, should I be watching this?
I used to go to my aunt's house and start by catching the happily ever after fairy tales on like the HBO. You know what I mean? When they used to have like those diverse fairy tales, and I would watch one of those, and then I would put in the VHS of Jerry Springer's Greatest Moments.
Oh God.
And I would watch that for the rest of the time. And that was like my after school hangout. It was either Jerry
sums
Springer,
it all up back then,
Friday, or the movie Higher Learning. And I was in like 3rd grade. You know what happens in Higher Learning?
Tyra
Banks gets shot and killed by white
Michael Rappaport is a white supremacist.
Yes. What? Michael Rappaport is a white supremacist. Like, so much is happening. And I was like, yeah, I feel that shit. I was
also, like, when you see it that young, you just know every nook and cranny of the film. Yes. And I didn't realize, because like when I was in our writer's room, we were having an episode that were going to be patterned on Friday called Saturday. And so research one night was to watch it. And I was like, wow, I know this. I know every word. I know every gesture. And I was like, oh, fuck. I patterned my voice after Chris Tucker. Like, that's where this came from.
Right? Right? There is a part of me when I start telling jokes that I know that's not my voice, that's Dave Chappelle's. Why am I doing that? Why am I making my voice sound like this?
It's either Dave Chappelle line or it's a line from Fifth Element that's coming out.
Yes!
2 hours with the diva.
Yes. And me and my brother, when we were growing up, we were huge movie nerds, and it was beyond our peers in a way that sometimes I think my mom used to be like, what the hell is wrong with my kids? Because we would watch something and we would memorize it.
You had the time to back then.
We had the time to, and it was just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And my mom would be like, they don't even just memorize the funny parts of the thing. They're memorizing everything. Why does RC know that this sound is coming? Why does he make this sound? Like, it would just be like, my brother's name is RC, and it would be like, like a sound in the background that would be like, that nobody else would notice, but my brother would crack up and would rewind it over and over and over, and we'd watch it. And it was just like, why are we like this? It's like childhood neglect.
Yeah. And like, I don't know how it would, like, I probably wouldn't play well today because like racism and shit, but like in Wayne's World, when Wayne is learning Cantonese, like I did it phonetically. Like I could run it all back just because I watched it so many times and I listened to it so many. Listen, we could probably do this all day. Why don't we get into what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, I'm like, because now we're going to start talking about Selena, and it's it's too much. Like, why do I know Spanish when I sing "Beady Beady Bum Bum"?
But no other
word. Or no other point.
All right, so this week, we're going to be talking about, our main discussion is Antebellum, and we're going to get a little bit into the latest Lovecraft Country episode, I Am, and we're going to close out this week with our Scream Queen, Taylor Russell, in Escape Room. We're not necessarily going to say that we really enjoyed this Not Saw franchise knockoff, but Black Final Girl, we got to talk about her on this show. So here we go. Antebellum is written and directed by Gerard Bush and Christopher Renz in their feature film debut. It stars Janelle Monáe, Gabrielle Sidibe, Kiersey Clemens, Jenna Malone, Marquis Richardson, amongst others, and is a horror thriller about a successful author and motivational speaker, Veronica Henley, or is her name Eden, who finds herself trapped, and this is the Google copy, who finds herself trapped in a horrifying reality that forces her to confront the past, the present, and the future before it's too late. Now, I was really excited because this trailer came out. It was saturated. It looked great. It looked like, I don't know what is going on here, what's happening, what this world is, but it's Janelle Monáe. We get a little Gabby in there. I was like, you see a little bit of Kiersey, and I was like, this is going to be, and then the pandemic hit and it got postponed. So I feel like on top of the initial anticipation, I was like, there was a little bit more built in there. And what I didn't realize, and I live in Los Angeles now. I've been talking to some writer friends of mine, and they were just like, yeah, we kind of knew. Like, there was this unspoken, there was rumblings in the community that Antebellum was not great.
Was not it.
Yeah. And that's kind of information I got after the fact. And she was like, I talked with the producer on that, and he was just like, not me, a friend of mine. She was like, I was talking with the producer, and he's like, I just don't talk to me about that film. And I was like, damn.
Ooh.
So what did you guys think?
They fucked up. I think they fucked up. Yeah.
They fucked up.
Yeah. I tried to hang in there for when they messed up the editing. Like, first of all, I was trying to be in there for the editing. Like, I'm like, okay, you're going to start at the plantation. Okay. But then they're going to stay at the plantation. They're going to keep this here. You're going to watch all this torture, all these black bodies getting hurt. And then we're going to jump back into this bitch just woke up out of a dream. Okay.
Oh.
And yeah, it was just, I was like, okay, well, maybe you're going to tie it in together. And I was kind of therefore discovering where they were and how that was set. But they didn't take it anywhere beyond that. They didn't even delve into how that all came to be. Like, why wouldn't I want to know more about that?
Right? Tell me how this formed. Don't show me the horror if you're not going to give me the keys to prevent the shit. That's like what horror is supposed to do. It's supposed to show you a weird way out. It's supposed to show you that hope, like, in the end, gives you like this opportunity to see where you fucked up and not do it in the future. Like, that's kind of the point.
Absolutely. And there was no hope. I didn't feel hope in this movie.
I was hopeless. I'm going to be honest. This movie, I see how this movie got made. I don't necessarily see how some of the people who are involved in it were involved in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I kind of am like, did you read this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or did it look different when you read it? Like, I wonder what form it was in when people signed on versus the form when it showed up.
Yeah.
Because I suspect it might be different. I suspect.
I'm certain they made a few big changes in it that fully affected it. And
I know they had to do a bunch of reshoots and stuff.
Did they? And
that's like not really a good sign.
No.
I'm like, Janelle, what about this? I wonder what she read, like.
I'm gonna be honest. I wonder what she read. I wonder what form she read it in. I wonder how this was explained to her.
But even with
because she left social media.
Oh shit. I didn't know that. I thought I just saw okay, damn.
Maybe not.
I know people were coming for her. The
other day I was looking and she was gone off Twitter. She was gone off Instagram. Maybe she's back. Like,
I think I saw her back like the other day. I think I did. And she was like wearing a bumblebee like pants or something like.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, okay. But I noticed, the writing was really stiff, but I wasn't sure if it was her acting or the writing, at times. Right. But it was the writing. And I was just, and I didn't want to blame her so much for it, you know, because I've seen her. She did a show on Amazon a few months
Homecoming.
back.
Yeah.
And I didn't finish it. I only got past the first episode, which I liked. But there was moments in it that I really liked, but there was also moments I felt her acting. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I was just like, I'm not in this moment with you. I feel like I'm feeling you read these lines. So I kind of felt that in this movie. And I was like, maybe this is too, I'm not saying she's a dynamic person, clearly, but I don't know, something about this character, it's not too big of a task for her. It just wasn't written properly, you know?
It was unconvincing. She like, there was something about that character that I'm like, at different points in this movie, it doesn't make sense to me that these are the same people.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, it doesn't, it's hard for me to understand, like, I know that, like, maybe what a person needs to like escape or whatever is really just to get lucky more than anything else. But why is she the only one who gets out?
Yeah, like, why does Kiersey have to go through what Kiersey Clemens goes through?
She's just there to feel pain. She's just there to feel pain. I didn't understand what that was all about. But also, so first of all, from a writing perspective, we're here for 40 minutes before we get into what was essentially the flashback, but into Veronica's story, which is like what we saw in the trailer writ large, right?
Right.
And so I was just like trying to make sense of that. But like, nobody is saying, oftentimes I think there's a fine line between what you withhold in writing, like what you conceal and what you show. And that can mean the difference between ambiguity, which is fine, or confusion, which is not. And, or that like, why, okay, so they can't talk that much, right? I get it. But like, okay, nobody is saying like, why are we in this weird place? Like, I don't get why, you know, like, when Kiersey and them come, there's no, like, they say, oh, you're from Virginia, you like, da-da-da. But nobody is like, did they get you in the SUV? Or like, I didn't,
Nobody's comparing notes. Nobody's comparing notes.
That's not accurate. That is just not accurate, because we would have been huddled up. We would have been at a plant. That just wouldn't have happened like that. The way they had us all in front of the big house on the plantation, I'm just like,
there's no way. And also, none of those people, for some reason, none of the white folks ever use the N-word. And I'm not saying that, like, I want to hear the N-word, but am I tripping? Like, did anybody ever say it? I don't feel like I don't think I heard it. I mean,
I felt it. I felt it.
Right? But you felt it. You feel it, but it's weird that nobody ever says it.
That's a weird oversight.
Given the wild amount of physical violence, nobody ever says just the N-word.
That had to have been a conscious decision. Like somebody went in there and like, oh, take this one out, take this out, and put an extra beating in there. Where every time we take an N-word out, you just knock a nigga out and take the N-word out.
That's what I'm saying. That it's almost like the vitriol that like would have been expressed verbally. They were like, well, if we can't do that, then we've got to make this beat down extra bad.
Mm-hmm. What they did to Homeboy and his wife, they shot her and they burned her, and then he ends up he gets an axe in the chest at the end, or a pitch, whatever that shit is. Like, why did that happen?
Why?
I don't
why
understand.
did that happen in slow motion? Like, it was just, there was like this, it was like it was a mess. But this is what, okay, so I wanted to talk about what you just said, Ashley, and then I'm going to read you this, Gerard, what he told Variety. I think we're in this place where art is being policed in such a way that the potency of the medicine that needs to be delivered is being greatly diluted. Good art, our art, is meant to activate and trigger.
Okay, no. First of all, the purpose of art is never simply to activate and trigger. What you are saying there is that the point of art is for me to have a certain amount of power, control, or influence over your emotional experience without having any responsibility to that emotional experience.
And that's
and my place in creating it. And that's the problem with the world, period, is way too many people want power without its twin, responsibility.
And that like responsibility is somehow the way that he's perceiving responsibility for what you make is the dilution of its potency. That doesn't track. I'm sorry.
That doesn't track at all. Intention, first of all, intention only makes things stronger. So what was your intention here? If people are having a strong emotional reaction, that's probably because your intention was off, not because they're reading it wrong or it's so powerful or so in depth that they just can't handle the emotional experience of having, you know, come in contact with your art. Get the fuck out of here.
It's such a dude
that is
thing
not
to
what's
say.
happening.
Like,
it is very much a dude thing to say.
I thought, okay, so like we started with this Faulkner quote that's like the past is not past, whatever, and I'm just like, this is already corny. Like
already.
As soon as it opened up, I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I felt bad about that. I was like, damn it. Like I already have a bad my instincts about this are my spidey senses are tingling.
Yes.
They're saying, bitch, turn this off, but I have to watch it. So
when you guys said Antebellum, I was like, fuck. Like a little bit. Because I was like, now I gotta watch it for real. Because I was kind of gonna try to avoid it, to be honest. Like I was kind of gonna try to be like, oh, I didn't see it, so that like I didn't have to talk about it. And I was like, okay, no, let's just do it. Let's watch it. And I did. And it was not a great experience. And you know, and it's for all the reasons that people much smarter than me have already said, which is essentially that like it felt lazy. You know, and that is not to say that every person involved didn't give their absolute best. Like, I don't think that's what happened here. But I do think the story that they ultimately came up with out of whatever they had was not a well-told story. The concept is interesting. Like, let's be fair. Sure, the concept is interesting. You just didn't execute
didn't live up to it
and translate it.
No.
Like, that's not the fault of the consumer. Like, to be perfectly honest, that's not the fault of your audience. Like, sometimes we're going to miss the mark, and not being able to accept that is how we keep making the same mistakes over and over. I'm not trying to see Antebellum 2, personal.
They better not. They better
They
not
better-
do that.
They better not.
They're like, the thing is, there were like gestures, right? But they didn't have meaning there. And I think a lot about when Veronica is doing her talking heads and like her TED talk or whatever, and the platitudes that she's expressing that like are meant to be smart,
thought-provoking, deep,
but it's just like, I know so many of those people who have those thoughts, who give those speeches, who say those things, you know, and it's like, you are not, this is bad. Like, this is just badly done. And there's supposed to be momentum, and there's supposed to be a fervor, and there's supposed to be like a call to action, or there's supposed to be some kind of like, you know, swelling emotional resonance. And it's just like, this is empty.
Yeah, I just wasn't buying into her Black woman strength. It felt very forced. It felt like somebody who had the idea of what a strong Black woman was.
Yes. It sounded like an avatar. Yeah.
I was just like, okay, like, I know what your intentions are here, but how come I'm not feeling it? How come I'm feeling like I could do that speech better than you right now?
You know, in games, when you bump up against those side characters and they're like, hey, watch it. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Or you got to like press A or B and they'll like tell you a story or whatever. It kind of sounds like that. Like you've come across a protest, and if you press on her, she'll like do a grand speech.
I have some words to say.
It reminded me of like sometimes when you're doing an initial draft and you just have something bracketed, like big emotional speech.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'll get back to it later. Like, that's the next draft. And it's just like, nobody came back to it in the draft. Like,
nobody did.
They were like prepared.
They were like, you know what? Wing it.
I will say, only person that came through was Gabby Sidibe. Like, I was feeling her.
Hotivities is my new favorite word. Hotivities. Come on now.
She had a whole lot of moments. She was just snatching. I don't think she wants to talk to you right now. Like just snatching her friend away from people. Like, oh, we're not interested at the moment. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling this. Right. I'm feeling these moments. This is real. Those are the realest moments in that whole movie. That's the only thing I can relate to.
You have to understand, we're champagne ladies, and this vodka cran is not doing it.
Her moment in the restaurant where homeboy tries to get her number or whatever, and she's like, first of all, you bet, oh yes, that whole scene. And but as she proceeds to read him and then give him her number out of his teeth. I'm like, wow. Oh yeah. The nerve. And I am so proud.
and that's the best part.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be the best part of the horror film.
It should not be. What the fuck? I wanted to see where their car went when they split two ways in the SUV. Right. I was like, where are they going? Because that's way more interesting than whatever happened to her. So
yeah.
And it's like when you have a largely milquetoast event of a movie and then you have something great in it, it makes the rest of it even worse.
That is so true. It's like the 50 Shades of Grey movies, because Dakota Johnson is actually doing a really great job. And my God, is she working with poor material and, to be honest, an even poorer partner in acting.
I didn't realize that she was a decent actress until I saw Suspiria. I was like, holy shit,
right?
She can act.
She can act. She can do it. I saw it then, but she was working under dire circumstances.
Yeah. I didn't
and that is that is similar to what Gabourey has going on here. It's like, girl, you brought your best, and nobody can take that from you.
Never. They will.
It is not your fault. This house is on fire.
Do we have any parting thoughts on Antebellum?
No Antebellum 2, please.
Antedonum.
Anta, don't you? Wait, I was gonna say, don't you know? No, Anta, don't you know? No good. No good.
That's my shit.
Remember when Martin called Cole Thicky Ricardo?
you love that fucking line. It's so funny. Oh Lord, Cole. That's my thoughts. Your final thoughts?
I don't have any final thoughts. Do you want to lead us into a little Lovecraft Country?
Let's do it. So this episode, Hippolyta finally gets her moment.
Yes, she does.
And I am. And
yes.
Lord, is this a beautiful episode? There's so much going on.
I'm gonna cry. Let me not cry.
I just want to. And Ingenue Ellis. Yeah.
Yes.
How are you feeling about it? What did this episode do for you?
Okay, well, here's what you gotta understand about the place I was in when I saw this episode, okay? First of all, I had just come back from a week of intensive trauma therapy in Tennessee when I watched this episode.
Oh,
damn.
So deeply working on my shit and coming into myself as like a person who likes herself. And also, my co-host on Lovecraft Country Radio was the co-writer for this episode. So this episode was so emotional for me from the start, and then watching it was just, oh my goodness. Like I believe in the podcast, I say that at the end of this episode, I felt like I was floating, like I felt weightless, and I did. The thing I loved about this episode and the character Hippolyta is something that I think a lot of Black women have dealt with, especially Black women who have exceeded the expectations that people around them had for them. You are always, from a very young age, especially when you exceed those expectations from a young age, you are dealing with the fact that necessarily where your mind or your brain or like who you are inside, you feel how big that is. You feel all of that desire and all of that want, and you're so connected to the thing inside of you that points you in the next direction that you should go, because that's the direction you want to go in and you're connected to that want. And this society, this country, in some cases our communities, our families, can be really quick to try to beat that out of you.
Yep.
Literally or figuratively. And so there's this idea, I think, that we have, or that we start to accept at some point in our lives, that we permanently lost our ability to go there. That when it was either taken from us or when we hid it from ourselves, that they did such a good job or we did such a good job that there's no more accessing that point. But as you get older, if you are lucky enough to get the opportunity, you start to unlearn some of those lessons and you start to feel yourself expand.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying and it's beautiful and it's worth every fucking second. And you want more, but you don't know how much more you want, and you're scared of how much you could possibly want and how big you could possibly get and how far you could go. It's terrifying. And in this week of intense trauma therapy, I sort of had to look at and confront the child version of me who still believed that that was a possibility. And I had to tell that version of me, essentially, like, me, Ashley, an adult, I'm going to help you have that, because the adults around you should have helped you and they didn't. And that's okay. We can't go back there. We can't fix any of that. But right now, we can do something and we can move toward that. So many of us don't know that that's possible, that that reclamation of self and of that fire is possible. That spark's not gone as long as you're alive. If you're alive, it's in there. If you're alive, you have a shot.
It's like giving, it's like going back and giving, and with all of this, whatever golden stuff that you have accumulated and grown and nurtured and kind of going back to that little kid and giving them a hug, right? And be like, this is going to work out. It is, I promise. It's going to be really hard. I was just talking in the class that I just did with Angel Nafis and her kids and her students, like they had brought up this interview that I'd done for a New York Review of Books, where it was like, I was talking about how, like, in order to write those books, I had to undo a very elaborate system of self-censorship. And that I'd accumulated. And I felt so much for this with Hippolyta, like literally like just like physically bowing my shoulders and making myself smaller and like and doing everything I could to get out of the way of society, or in order to avoid it, or to, because I associated it with so much pain. Like I had to it started off like just going to a racist, homophobic high school, but before that, and also just like being part of literally a tribal society where everyone is monitoring everybody else, and you can't get too big because people will notice you and hit, and you know, and beat you down or whatever, and having to take those like 15 years off the reservation to just, and not that like the reservation itself did this to me, but it's also a deeply homophobic and racist society. You kind of start to realize that like you have been doing white supremacy's work for it, and that's what Hippolyta says, right? She said, I put the noose around my own neck.
We all realize, like, all of us creative people, that we have something special in us. And at some point, we've all had to deal with that, recognizing, as you did, Ashley, that you beat some of that down yourself, that you blocked your own shine, your light. And, you know, I don't know how they were able to do that in an episode, you know, a nod to your friend, to encapsulate what a Black woman goes through, but what a Black mother goes through. And I immediately, when I finished the episode, I called my mom. I'm like, you have to watch this episode. It's speaking to you. It's speaking to me. And I think we need to, it's just a necessary watch. But
this is really interesting that you said that, because a lot of people have told us that they watched this episode and called their mothers.
Oh, wow.
And told them to watch the episode.
Wow. Yeah, it's that profound. It is so beautiful.
And that just like, you know, and my co-host Shannon is a mother. She's a mother of three, what she says.
You can only write like that unless you know.
You know, three free Black children. And a turtle named John Avelli. And she, you know, just what she did in this episode astounds me. Hippolyta's journey through pleasure and anger and power and resentment and fear and courage, like through the cosmos, is just it is the most adventure I've ever seen a Black woman have.
Ever. I was in tears because I had never seen something like that.
I've never
seen.
It
made me sad, but I was just so happy to finally see it and see it done well. But I was just like, okay, that was a lot of what I was feeling was, how is this the first time?
Yes. When do we get to go to space? You know, one of my favorite, my grandma always loved space movies. I've always loved space movies. There's two things we love: space movies and Westerns. If there was a space movie or a Western available when we went to the movie theater, we were definitely agreeing on the movie we wanted to see. And that continued throughout her life until she passed. But it always, whenever I think of space movies, the person I think of immediately is like Tom Hanks, who, as great as he is, let's be honest, is like the white guy.
The whitest guy. When we love him.
We love him.
Yeah.
But he's the white guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's who I think of because Apollo 13 came out when I was a young person, and it was everywhere. Apollo 13, like everywhere.
Or female characters, Sigourney Weaver and Alien, you know.
Sigourney Weaver and Alien. I also, as a very young person, this is before I was 5, told my preschool teacher that my favorite movie was Barbarella.
My mom would not let me watch that one. I do remember that. And then it would come on like TBS, but her movies would be blurred out. So I'm like, can I watch it? She's like, it's a little bit much. But then I would go and watch Tales from the Crypt with my brothers, like within the same day. So I'm just like, you need to make up your mind.
Make up your mind. Oh, I love
inconsistencies in this.
So many inconsistencies. But
Barbarella.
I love that shit. But I never really saw Black women.
They didn't want us up there. They don't want us to think like that.
You know, we had Star Trek. We had
Gooooood.
Yes. We also had when Whoopi Goldberg was in Star Trek.
Guinan,
or the voice. Okay, I don't know.
Next
Generation.
I can't remember.
Get cussed down on the comments.
It wasn't Next Generation. I think
it was Next Generation. I think it was. It wasn't Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, because that was her in Picard.
Yeah, because she was friends with Picard. That makes sense. But not as adventurers. Not as adventurers, as bartenders with a lot of wisdom, as maybe like navigators from inside the ship. But the person who goes out and like explores and travels through time, us?
I mean, has the knowledge and the brain to do it. And you know, they show her strength when she gets mad at Letty and Tick when they do, can we borrow the car? She's like, no, I got shit to do too. I have places to be too. And you know, and then it turns out Tick he ends up where she's at anyway. And
very quickly, I might add. Just kind of drops
a whole
in
lot
there.
But you know, and ultimately, she comes back for her daughter, which of course I was like, of course she's coming back for her baby. But she got to see. At the end, she comes back. Yeah.
Well, we don't actually see her come back through the portal because it closes.
No, she comes back through the portal, and her and Tick meet at the end. They meet at.
She didn't.
Oh, you're right.
No, the portal closes.
Where did she get
She decided to come back. To come back. Well, she was like, "I'll do this for my dad," but then
Tick got sent out the portal.
She said, "D needs me."
Yes.
But
but we don't see where she goes
through the portal.
Okay. I forgot.
Tick was the only one who came through the portal.
And that's what I was wondering. I was like, where the hell did Tick go in that whole time? Because we don't even know where his ass went.
Where did Tick go during all that time, guys?
He came back with the Lovecraft Country book.
Didn't he?
Yeah.
That book might be important.
The book of names.
Just the writing is so the writing was so good, and I kept thinking about, because poetry is my first love. It's the thing that I came up in. It's the thing that I will continue to do no matter what. But when Josephine Baker is talking about being a star,
Josephine
that
Baker,
whole scene, and she's just like, when she talks about getting up there and being that star, and she's just like, with magnificent, ancient, and already extinguished. And I was like, Shannon, you better write that.
All of that was perfect, though.
She
said,
good.
where do I want to be? I want to be on stage dancing with Josephine Baker. Like, what the fuck? And it was so beautiful. And homegirl that played Josephine, I was just like, they're doing a good job. This is done very well.
Do you guys know the name of the godlike character who she meets?
No.
I know because of listening to the show, but yeah, it's Beyonce. Beyond
with the afro of my dreams. Afro of my dreams. That is, oh my God.
Right? My hair's never looked that good a day in my life. I don't care who's cutting it. I don't care how big it was. Not a day in my life has it approached the magnificence of
pinnacles of that fro. Oh my goodness.
No.
Yes.
One of the other things,
the black woman on the motorcycle, that was a beautiful omen. That was
Bessie
so
Stringfield.
I love that. That was very pretty. Yeah.
Yes.
Just that little wave and I was like, okay, so this is a foreshadowing. There is some danger to come, but I think this is a sign that you got all you need. You got that in you to get through whatever you need to get through.
A lot of this episode is about Black women being guided by Black women. The point of Bessie, I think Shannon says this at a certain point. I'm not sure if it made it into the episode. But the point really of Hippolyta seeing Bessie on the road is the fact that though this is the first time maybe we're seeing somebody like Hippolyta do this, Hippolyta's not alone.
Mm-hmm.
She's not alone.
She's not. No.
And she is not the first to do this. At every point, she is being safely guided by those who have gone before her.
Yeah, she is.
And she's seen
it's a divine path set before her, and she is walking those steps. And yeah, I believe in her character too much to, you just know, like, they can't allow anything to happen to this person because she's just too integral to the story. I did notice that they killed George in the show and not in the book, though. I was wondering why they did that. It was kind of interesting, but they can bring him back because this shit's magical, so they can still bring him.
You never know what's gonna happen in Lovecraft Country. You
really never do. You really never do. Also, Christina Braithwaite is Caleb Braithwaite in the book, and there's a whole lot of gender swapping going on, which I'm very much into. Like, I like that they gave Ruby that partner instead of her having to deal with it's William and it would have been William and Cale, but now it's William and Christina, and now it's Christina and Ruby hooking up. And
are we getting some Christina Ruby action?
I mean, you kind of did already, basically. I mean, technically, it kind of.
You gotta keep watching the show.
Okay, are they related to Tick? Is Tick and Letty related? Because Christina says something about your family. Yeah. She says that to Ruby.
She's just pregnant with this baby, but they're not related. That would be, I'm like, they don't got to put incest on top of everything in this show. No.
No,
you kept saying that to me. I'm like, there better not be no damn incest up in the show. I don't need that too. There's a whole lot to unpack.
Despite the all the special effects and the going in between worlds and the reimaginings and the Josephine Baker of it all and the Dahomey Amazons and all that kind of stuff, the biggest leap for me was Montrose thinking that he could sneak Sammy in and out of that house without anybody seeing. Because there's like 8 or 10 people that live in that place. And I was like, I think Montrose kind of wanted to get caught because there's no way you can sneak Sammy in and out of there. Like,
maybe Montrose did kind of want to get caught. Montrose is a person who is not good at asking for or allowing himself what he wants. In my view, I think that that's what happens to a person who denies their humanity. The easier it is for you to deny your own humanity, the easier it is for you to deny another person's humanity. And he is very much a person who believes the only good thing about his life is his son, and even his son doesn't like him, and for good reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think he did probably want to get caught, but I think that he wouldn't have known any other way.
Well, because he doesn't deal with things through conversation. It's only through confrontation, you know. And so he had to, I feel like, get found out. One of the things that I really liked was that, you know, in these ensembles, like sometimes we get into like circuits of characters kind of only hanging out with each other. Right. So I like that we got a moment with like Ruby and Hippolyta. Yeah. You know, where they got to like be friends, or even like Tick and Hippolyta, because it's like we really only saw Hippolyta interact with her husband and her daughter before. Right. You know, and now she just, I mean, she's smoking, she's like with Josephine and them, and then Josephine's making out with Frida Kahlo, and like, you know, it just So I like that we get to explore some of these characters' relationships with each other.
I agree.
And then a little bit of Ruby and Letty kind of talking to each other again. And I liked when Letty, I was going to go with him to like do this family thing. And she's like, why did you stay? And she's like, I had family business here. Yeah. You know, and it's like, I think she's, and also when she talked about like, I never thought that like in talking about my mother, whatever, that I'd become her. Or that like, you know, I wasn't like a hustler, but I played you. Yeah. And it just, this dialogue is so fucking good. Like, just, can you tell Shannon when you get back there that like, that is, because I've been in a room and so I know what the outlines look like. And so I know that like the room breaks the story, but the writer has to get in there and innovate the whole thing and make it into a thing that works. It's not going to work if the words coming out of those people's mouths isn't good, you know? And it's just like, man, she's such a good writer.
She is. Watching the episode made me feel more proud than I have any right to be, because I definitely didn't know her when she was writing it. You know what I mean? And really, I've only known her since this summer now. So I can't take any credit for anything, but I feel so proud of her because I just, like, I get to talk to her in a way that I get to see these ideas form. I get to see how she researches and how she thinks and how brilliant she is. Like, I get that up close. And the way people have responded to this episode, I'm like, yes, like, I want y'all to really understand who I'm talking to on this podcast.
And you get to be within the presence of this person.
Yes.
Special.
Yes, because I think she's brilliant. You know, she's a ton of fun. I'm really gonna miss recording with her.
Season 2, I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see. Hey, make it happen, HBO.
Do you have any other final thoughts on I Am?
Yeah, I mean, other than it just impressed the hell out of me. Right. I really love that last scene with her and George on that on whatever, and she's via blue. I just thought that was so sweet. And then the Sun Ra. That's a speech by him going on in the background. That's really cool. I just thought that was so sweet. So damn sweet.
I loved that. You know, I love that Dee saw her mother this way before her mother knew that she could be this way. You know? Yeah. I love that. And I love where this story has taken Hippolyta, and I just am really grateful for her. I'm grateful for her character and for what she showed me in this episode.
I mean, and she's a fighter. You know, like, I love the fact that they got to play with time in this way in order to make her the biggest version of herself. She got time to do that. And like what you said about her daughter seeing that, like, it doesn't matter how much like Hippolyta thinks and has shrunk herself and how much the world is, but your kid always thinks of you as being big.
Yes.
You know, and they can sometimes see you in ways that you can't really, or you don't even really see yourself anymore, you know?
Yeah.
I saw myself in their relationship when they went to the observatory, and she told her daughter, that's my constellation, but you know, that's my star. And her daughter made it a point to let everybody in that room know. And that's some shit I would do. And my mother, shut the hell up, girl. But I'd be like, nah, I had to do what I had to do, you know, because we look out for, you know, the women that we love, or the people that raised us. I have so much respect for my mother, and I've been blessed to have someone that's really been by my side. So, and she's strong and dynamic, and just to see somebody who's graceful and keeps it all together, but has her flaws, and, you know, she deserves to be able to explore her life and to rebel. She deserves that time, because she's given up everything for so much. So I really appreciate it.
I don't want it to end. Like, I don't want this show to end. Like, it's given us a lot to talk about. The thing is, like, we started Screen Queen just wanting to talk about scary movies, right? Because like Drea and I, like, we met like over 10 years ago, and anytime we got together, immediately it was just like, what was the last scary movie that you saw? And like, it's just like when you turn something into a podcast that comes out of just a natural tenor of your conversation, it makes it so the process is easy. And you know, we kind of been going back and forth between movies and stuff like that. And this season has just become Lovecraft Country rewatch, or like a recap podcast, as well as being about other things. So yeah, this is a great episode. Highly recommended, 100%. Like, let's just give this another season, HBO.
Let's see.
All right, shall we move on to our Scream Queen this week?
Let's get into it, Tommy. Who'd you pick?
So I picked this person. Like, I don't do escape rooms. It's not really my thing. I don't want to be put into it. I have claustrophobia, and not like real, but like mental. And it's like, don't put me in a room and tell me I can't get, like, quarantine is hard enough for me. Like, I don't want to do quarantine for fun. The fuck? No. But you know, there was like a spate of these escape room movies. There was just like a bunch of people just like concept money, do it. And this was the better of them. Also, we get Taylor Russell as our Screen Queen, as Zoe. She's a final girl in this movie. I like Taylor Russell. She's very sweet. I like that she added a pop of color to Lost in Space, the reboot. You know, I didn't. Waves, I like what she did. I like that at the end of that movie, we got a real frank, emotional, open conversation between her and Sterling K. Brown, which is just like a Black father and daughter having that type of conversation is just still so rare in cinema and television. I didn't actually see the final cut of the film. I like did a little bit of the focus group stuff, and I was like, okay, my question is like, why did Trey Edward Schultz fix his white pen to write a story of a Black family instead of like being an EP and having the Black writer give that opportunity? But like, you know, that's neither here nor there. Although I did like It Comes at Night, which he wrote back in the but I don't like what he did to Carmen Gojo in that movie. But anyway, Taylor Russell as Zoe Davis in Escape Room. What I liked about Zoe in this movie was that they gave Taylor they didn't just make her the sweet girl. You know, she was rebellious. She was like not going with the rest of the group. She was like here to break things. And I like that they gave Taylor that extra texture to chew on, you know?
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness they put her in this movie, because the rest is like, you know, it's garbaggio. Also, Jay Ellis is really nice to look at, but other than that, I saw this movie in the theaters when it came out, and I was underwhelmed, really underwhelmed. I think I fell asleep for 20 minutes. She was great. I didn't see Waves. I didn't watch Lost in Space with her, but I like her. She's really fantastic. I want to see more of her. She kind of reminds me of Homegirl from Dr. Sleep.
Yeah.
She has that vibe, and I really appreciate that. So
another final girl.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. You know, I guess I didn't realize that was her in Lost in Space until just this moment. Oh my God.
Yep.
Dope.
Yeah.
And she was also great in this. I really enjoyed her as the final girl. I thought she was a different kind of final girl. Definitely, I thought her temperament and like who she was throughout it, like I was like, nah, man, she might go. Like they might take her ass, but they didn't. And yeah. You know, it's hard for me sometimes with these kinds of movies because it's like, you're a final girl, but is the game over? Are you a final girl?
Mm.
Like,
I saw that there's an Escape Room 2 coming out, so
Right?
I mean that could be the end of her in part 2. So we'll see.
Yeah. And you know, if you're a final girl in part 1, all bets are off in part 2. We know this ever since Scream, even though they still killed a lot of people in that one.
Yeah.
And they didn't kill Sydney. But that's when we learned the rules, that in the second one, all bets are off.
All bets are
Mhm.
off. Although with this new climate, you think they'd be smarter and not, if they're going to bring her back, they probably shouldn't kill her ass off, because that would not do so well.
That's true.
If they're smart.
That's true. That's true. I was really excited, though, when she popped up and was ready to whoop ass and kill the game master.
You know, like, she's like a problem solver. She like makes it through a bunch of the tapes. She's like, oh, actually, this is like she's kind of the guiding, does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to figuring out the puzzles.
Yes.
You know, in this sort of kind of like, and then it takes this like Purge twist kind of, where like all of these like people are watching and there's like a Hunger Games vibe, but like it did end up in my, like I kind of thought of it, I was like, this just feels like a Saw script that didn't end up becoming a part of the Saw franchise.
Yeah.
We did also get Deborah Ann Wall, who played Jessica the vampire in True Blood.
Yes, the perma virgin.
Yes, and
I forgot about that.
longest neck in America. Like,
She got that giraffe neck. She's pretty.
Yes, and I love it. I'm gonna be honest. I love a long neck, and she's, you know, if you've got one, you got to work it, and I do think that she does work it.
Yes, she does. She got more chokers, whatever her name
More
is.
chokers.
So yeah, Taylor Russell, our final girl in the Escape Room. You know, you made it to the sequel. We're crossing our fingers that you make it through the trilogy, because
It's not looking good, girl.
It doesn't look good for you at all. But we're gonna hope.
We're rooting for you.
We're rooting for you.
all right, Queens, don't forget that we got a Google Voice number and we want to hear from you. What's the scaredest? Actually, can you answer this question first as well, Ashley, since we got you? What is the scaredest you've ever been in the theater? It doesn't necessarily have to be in a scary movie, but what's the scaredest you were ever in the theater?
Yeah, just a fucked up situation in a theater. Doesn't, like you said, doesn't have to be scary.
When me and my husband went to go see it in the theater, at some point a red balloon just started floating in front of the screen. So that was a pretty, like, that was definitely a moment where I was like, nope, don't play with me.
Tommy would have run out the damn theater.
That's not what I'm here to do. That's not what I'm here. I'm not part of the movie.
What I'm here for.
No.
My dumb ass man, where's Pennywise at? Oh, is he here?
You know what? No, I'm gone. So that's either that's it, or it was seeing The Grudge with my friends in high school. The original Grudge with Sarah Michelle Gellar, like that first horror film. Now I'm like, I haven't gone back and watched in a while, so maybe it's not as scary as I remember it. But I was curled up in my seat. Like, I was definitely like, oh my God, like watching it, but super terrified.
Did you see the reboot?
No.
No, I didn't see the reboot. I heard
no.
the reboot was terrible.
No, it was terrible. No,
I remember liking the Korean version a lot, and and I saw the Sarah Michelle Gellar one wasn't bad actually. I did recall that it wasn't. But to me it wasn't as scary as the Korean one. But once you see another version, it's hard to compare the two. Like, I thought The Ring was scarier than Ringu because I saw one before the other. But I think it was, honestly. But
is that the one when you were in the theater and there was one person way in the back?
Way up in the top. We were just looking at each other the whole time.
Oh my God.
It's like one thing, like you look back and he's like a seat closer, and then like a row closer, and then a row closer.
Okay. Let me just share. I'll show you that story. Have I told you that story of a guy who pulled that on me in the theater? No. I used to work in a theater in San Diego, the Ken Theater, whatever. I'll throw y'all under the bus. Part of the Landmark. Landmark's out of business, so whatever. I can't even get no money for it. This fool was sitting in the front. I was taking a nap in the back because it was just there was hardly anybody ever at our screenings. we could take naps during the day if we wanted. This fool gets up, walks out, and I see him. And he walks back in, and I'm half asleep. I wake up, and he's like, there's somebody 5 rows ahead of me that wasn't 5 rows ahead of me. I go back to sleep, I wake up. Somebody 2 rows ahead of me that wasn't 2 rows ahead of me. I go back to sleep, I wake up. There's somebody directly in front of me, and my feet are up on the seat. And I'm like, how crazy would it be if I took my feet down and his hand was right there touching the bottom of my foot? And I just quickly sat my feet down, and his hand was right there doing this to the bottom of my foot. And he didn't realize I had moved my foot. And then he looks and he's like, and then he gets up and he walks out. And then he gets up and he walks to the front of the theater. And then he walks out of the theater with his girlfriend and his hand around her arm as I'm behind the concession stand. And none of the managers, nobody did anything. I told him, like, I'm going to walk in there and call this dude out. And they're like, oh, we'll handle it. And then he walks out with that. So anyway, that wasn't the scariest. It was just the most fucked up.
No, that's very fucked up. That is very fucked up. But also, like, he was 5 rows away and then 2, and then you went back to bed. I was like,
kept going back. I know. I'm just like, because it didn't. I was like, there's no way. I kept telling myself, no.
I would have sat the fuck up, like.
Hey, hindsight, little 19-year-old me, I'm just like, I mean, I was feisty back then too. I wish I would have kicked him. I should have fucking kicked him. Damn.
No, you were
There's
sleepy.
just hindsight. But anyway, I thought that my managers were going to do something, and they were just good for nothings. But anyway, that was a trip.
Well, regale us, dear listeners and viewers, with your stories. Our Google Voice number is 619-289-9052. That is 619-289-9052. We want to hear from you.
And so catch us next week, same time, same place. We're getting into Spree, a flick that not only gave us something worth discussing, but we got another Black final girl, Miss Sashir Zameda. And of course, we're going to be giving you our thoughts on the next episode of Lovecraft Country. And sadly, we're coming down to the last few, and that's fucking horrible. So, yeah.
It is horrible. I'm sorry.
No, thank you for feeling our
Your
pain.
fault.
You know, though. She knows what we feel, and I just appreciate her.
I know. I do.
So, Scream Queen is produced by Alexandra De Palma and Domino Sound.
With theme music by Doc Allison.
I am Drea. What the hell was that debate last night, Washington? You can find me on the gram at Hey Girl Hey. That's HeyGrlHey.
Ashley, why don't you give us your social media?
My social media is Twitter, I Smashed Fizzle, and on Instagram, it's Smash Fizzle. And just my website is ashleycford.com.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. I am Tommy Teebs Pico. You can find me at Hey Teebs, HeyTeebs on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter anymore. I stopped the doom scrolling, but who knows? I might go back there one day, but just not today. Today's not the day.
You're free. Be free.
Be free. You can find us on Instagram at Scream Queen Podcast.
And online at screamqueenpodcast.com.
And please send us some love notes. Screamqueen@gmail.com. That's SCREEEM queen@gmail.com.
And in the scary movie of your life,
you better
scream, Queen. You know, it's a lot harder to do it in unison when we're not in the studio. So.
I know. I don't even know how you guys did that. I was like, oh, wow, they're really doing it at the same time.
Practice.
Like there would be a delay.
We're professionals and shit.
Wow.